I just realized, Andrew, the name of the gallery is GU Art.
Basically, it's a collective of local artists,
Yes.
local professional artists,
Yes.
and we banded together to find a place to show our work, because all the other commercial galleries have their own stable of artists, and many of which are pop stars, children's entertainers, retired comedians, and occasionally a few artists. At the higher end, the art market is merely a money laundering operation for very rich people to deal in art that they don't really care about. The sort of normal marketplace commercial galleries tend to struggle because they have overheads that are very, very big, and so they tend to go for the names, a lot of the names. Hence, you get in the local galleries around here, you get Billy Connolly, Bob Dylan, Johnny Depp, all names that people know, and occasionally you get the artists like Banksy and Hearst, the people who've got profile names. For us struggling workaday artists, working in our studios, we've got to find some way to show our work. And increasingly what happens is that galleries in the past have been willing to take you on, or did take you on as artists, gallery artists. There's less of that now, and what you tend to have to do is to hire galleries. And you take all the risk, and obviously that is very financially draining. So to have this space, which is operated by a charity called Access Web, where they find empty properties for art-related activities. This is fantastic because it means that us local artists have a space in the middle of town for people to see our work, so we don't have to rely on them coming to us in our studios.
How do you find your inspiration?
Essentially, my art is about what I see, and normally it is about where I travel to.
Yes.
And so a lot of the work is based upon landscape and place. The work in this gallery at the moment is based upon my love of music, and for the last 2 or 3 years I've been focusing very much on live performance work. And so I will go to festivals, I will go to small gigs where I will draw the musicians live. Never work from photographs.
No.
Most people tend to rely on photographs, and in this case this is done from sketches that I've done live.
Yes.
And so that's where the inspiration comes from.
I do want to bring it in discussion just because there is a connection
Yes.
between visual art and your music.
Yes,
So,
yes indeed.
Yeah.
I tend to find when you're waiting around to go on, or by the side of a stage, you have a lot of time on your hands, and that's when I got my sketchbook out and started to draw the people on before me or after me, and that's how it started. But I've always drawn musicians. Back in the 80s when I was into jazz, I used to go around a lot of the jazz clubs and jazz festivals in Europe, and so a lot of trumpets, a lot of flugels, a lot of bass players. I was very heavily into the jazz scene. More recently I'm more into the blues scene because I'm in a blues band, and a lot of guitar-based work, so a lot of the work is based upon blues artists and solo artists, veering into Americana and folk. And I have a lot of my favourite artists that I like to draw over and over again, many of which, it was luckily that I did a drawing of Dennis Greaves of 9 Below Zero, and he saw the work, and together with a couple of other sketches it was used on their latest album, so that's quite fun. So.
Yeah. What do you think, Andrew, about art today, nowadays?
Big question. By art, I mean it covers a multitude of sins, doesn't it?
Yes, of course.
Are you meaning worldwide or in this country?
In this country.
as I said, there is a certain level of art where if you go over a certain type of price, you're entering the field of investment art. And when it gets to the highest level, you've got a very small range of artists whose value is artificially high, a bit like a junk bond. And it's basically used as a commodity for laundering dirty money. So that's really what that is a completely different thing to the commercial art world, which is based upon us jobbing artists, exhibiting our work, selling it. And you don't make a hell of a lot of money out of it because, as I say, the galleries have to take some of the risk. The commissions are quite strong and high, so the artist itself has to generate quite a lot in order to make a living. So most artists, if they're honest, they will have what are called side gigs. They will have other income streams in order to survive. And so that's the lot of the average artist. Yes, for every successful artist making millions and millions and millions, there are thousands upon thousands just getting by. And so, but you don't do it for the money.
No, of course you know.
If you want to make money in the art world, you become a dealer, you don't become an artist. The art market is a market, and it responds to all the strictures of the marketplace.
Yes.
That is why I am going to be poor, because I have no interest in business. Because I know I'm not a businessman.
I found myself pretty much in the same situation, so yes.
The most successful artists monetarily are the best businessmen. There's no accident that Damien Hirst is a good businessman. And of course, Jeff Koons famously was a commodities broker before he became an artist.
But actually, we are doing this podcast, Andrew, just because I want to show people what art really means and what it's hiding behind.
There's a kind of art that's kind of sponsored by the state. It's a kind of subsidised art, the Arts Council art.
Yeah.
And that has very little to do with the average work that goes on a gallery wall, because much of it is not traditional mediums. So it's performance, it covers a wide range of things. The bigger the event, the bigger the splash, the more controversial it is. And so much of the art that comes out of art studios now, or art schools, is geared towards state subsidy, and so you're getting art that is not the traditional drawing and painting side. So I'm basically an anachronism. I use oil, I use stuff, I put stuff on a flat sheet of paper and stick it in a frame. I don't wander around doing performances and whatever. I leave that to other people.
You don't bang your head.
Well, it did, but again, that's so that, you know, the art world is a much wider thing than what I'm doing. I'm one end of the market. I'm the more traditional end.
And that's how we get your exhibition.
Well,
today.
Yes, the one that I'm going to be exhibiting in the Institute is really a smaller exhibition of mixed media pieces, collage work. It deals with, again, where I've been to, the places I've visited. Normally my art practice divides into going to a place, travelling, and I will either sketch, if I've got a little time, what I see, or I will sit down with an easel and I will paint what I see in front of me, and then that will go back to the studio, from which I will interpret those into more abstract responses. But the adjunct to that is I will start picking things up from the floors, or assembling or collecting stuff that is around me in place. So anything from little bits of scraps of paper, fag packets, detritus that I've picked up, sand, dirt, little souvenirs. All these things become possible motifs, and they all go into big drawers. I've got drawers of it, and they'll be used to assemble my collages. So it's like a kind of memento, if you like, of a place.
Yeah.
So you're not just looking, but you're looking down as well.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The way in which my abstracts operate are very much how a collage works. So one feeds the other. So the collages can feed the sculpture. The collages can feed the abstracts, and the abstracts can feed the nature of how I work.
Yeah.
So a lot of the compositions of my abstract paintings can derive from the collages, but they exist in their own right as pieces. And I like the idea of a picture that's made out of the flotsam of life, the rubbish, if you like, presented as a treasure, because I think a lot of the work today is very kind of surface orientated, and I like texture. So the work of my collages are primarily to do with not just colour and shape, but also texture. Texture is very important, and I think a lot of the sensibility, the modern sensibility, is for the very superficial, the flash, and this is interpreted by a kind of distrust of anything that's got a bit of grit to it. It has to be clean, it has to be smooth, flat, and a lot of paintings, for example, are sort of slathered in this resin, so it sort of glistens.
Yeah.
And it's very shiny and ultimately very shallow. My collages are, I would think, are pretty gritty and pretty kind of textural. That's essentially what I'm interested in. That was a wicked name. I called it rubbish.
You call it rubbish?
I called it rubbish because...
Well, you did explain a bit why, but carry on.
It's because it could be people's opinion of the work once they see it.
I further that.
Yes, it's slightly... It's to grab the attention.
Yeah.
And I like to think of them more as assemblages of the everyday bits and pieces. It's not rubbish because they are... I use the word palimpsest to describe the work, because they are, if you like... And a palimpsest is traditionally a piece of vellum, animal skin, which was then used... People used to write on it, and once it had been used, it was scraped back so it could be used again. So what you've got is the ghost of what was underneath being revealed. And so a lot of my work, a lot of the collage work, is based upon assembling things over and over again, and also to peel back so you reveal what's underneath. So in that sense, they are like little bits of not history, I suppose, memories. And they are memories of places. People take photographs, I collect rubbish. That's the difference.
Do you feel connected to those bits when you create?
In the sense that I've assembled them, I mean, a lot of the time, I will take things out of my drawers and I will use them, and I'll be assembling them because of the colour, shape, not necessarily because they have any meaning. So, for example, a lot of the work involves typography or letter design. And because the places I've been, a lot of it's in Arabic or Farsi, Sub-Cyrillic from Russia. I have no idea what these things are saying. I don't understand the languages. They're used because I like the shapes of the words. So they are purely used as a motif.
Yes.
And so, I can look at a piece and I say, oh yes, I remember picking that bit up there, and other times I don't know where these bits have come from. I mean, there's some bits that come from my palettes that I've used, so it's a kind of self-generating thing. I'll reuse and reuse and reuse, and sometimes a collage will then sit in a drawer for a year. I'll get it out again, turn it upside down, and think and add to it, and then the subject matter reveals itself.
Yeah. Right. What do you think about young artists nowadays? How do you see them?
I think they have a hard time of it. There is very little. Traditionally, there's no real career path for an artist. I think artists have been given a little bit more. They are much more savvy than my generation were. We were just glad in our generation just to be able to paint or to produce art.
Yeah.
We had no commercial savvy. I think since the day of the Brit artists, people have gone much better at marketing themselves. They can use social media, which I can do very badly. I think the younger generation are much better. They see much more clearly that what they are producing is not just themselves, but also they're producing a product which can be, marketed. And I think, all fair play to them, I think. But the market is very saturated, and I think those that have got a product that is commercially successful, all play to them. But I think it also militates against a lot of art that isn't. And so in that sense I feel sorry for them. But you don't do it to make money, you do it because you have to do it, you want to do it, and that's it.
That's the genuine artist, yeah.
Yes, it's the old romantic view of the struggling artist, which is not necessarily necessarily a good paradigm. We've grown up with this idea of the struggling artist. There's no reason why it should be so. Matisse famously married rich and lived in a hotel in the south of France, and so that's a better example, I think, than cutting your ear off a la Van Gogh, quite frankly. So I would suggest that the young artists follow the Matisse example rather than the Van Gogh.
Favourite artists?
All artists, if they're honest with themselves, will say to you that their favourite artists are themselves. But I also like artists that are that produce work like mine. So it's a symbiotic thing. So let me think of the artists I like. I mean, again, I'm greatly influenced by what I see. And I go to galleries a lot. A lot of artists can benefit by looking at other artists. I mean, I'm very fond of John Craxton at the moment. And I like the work of Barbara Ray, for example. More recently, I've seen some lovely Renaissance drawings at the King's Gallery. So that's Augustus John, an artist that's fallen out of favour recently because Gwen John, his sister, is more famous, quite rightly so.
I'm interested in cinema photography as well. Other visual languages, or
I like watching cinema. I like the moving picture, but in terms of fine art, where artists like Steve McQueen start off producing work in film, I find it really lame. I find the technical their technique is very amateurish. The way they present their work, generally in art galleries, is awful. And if you want to see a good person working well cinematically, then you go and watch a film in a cinema where the production values are great and everything else. It's a completely different world. I'm not convinced really about the use of cinema in fine art. I'm not sure it hasn't grown. It's still in its infancy. Whereas I think, for example, go back to collage. Collage has grown over the years, and again, one of my inspirations for collage is Kurt Schwitters, who famously was producing work in the 1940s, and I've always liked his work. And that's matured, the use of collage. But cinema, photography, I leave that to other people. I have to say I was traditionally trained at the Ruskin, and it was the period where, I suppose, the camera was regarded with some disdain, because it was not about drawing, it's not about eye drawing, it was about click, 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 and the camera did the work. But of course, since then, technology's moved on, and you can manipulate things much more easily. So I can see much more the value of the creative aspects of photography since the age of the computer. No, I grew up in Dorset, and I moved. I suppose I spent most of my childhood in Dorset. My first studio was in the Cotswolds in Cheltenham, Stonewall. And I moved down to Guildford in 1993. I've been here ever since.
So people, when they are coming to your exhibition today, they will know the rubbish, actually no rubbish. Hopefully. We have to remember that.
Hopefully they will say this show isn't rubbish.
Yes.
But if it is rubbish, it's good rubbish.
I'll try and keep this short, which is very difficult, as my wife will tell you. Right, so I subtitled this exhibition Rubbish, as it's slightly disingenuous to get a bit of interest, but essentially what these works are part of my artistic practice, and essentially my work divides into three parts. I'm a painter primarily, and I travel quite a bit, and the work is based upon where I've travelled. Now, when I'm working fast, when I'm travelling around and I don't have time to sit down and have a painting made, I will sketch, I will draw in sketchbooks, but more often than not I will park myself with a proper easel and canvas and record what I see. Now I'll paint figuratively and take them back to the studio, and then from that we'll develop the abstract landscapes, which is the majority of my work. But I also will start to pick up bits of flotsam. I fozzick around, I like to pick up bits and pieces of rubbish, essentially. Could be things like table mats, fag packets, bit of litter, bit of coral, little bits of souvenirs, and more importantly typography, which I'll come on to in a minute. And these will go back into great big drawers in my studio, which will lie fallow for a long time, and then they'll gradually be brought out and mixed and composed until I'm happy with them. I do too many different things, which is why galleries hate me, because they can't pigeonhole me. They can't. I mean, most artists, if I was giving advice to an artist now, I would say to them, look, find a subject matter or find a thing that you enjoy doing and that people can identify you for, and then keep doing that. And that's a good way of actually getting your name out there. Whereas I tend to produce work that is, my work is abstract, paintings of landscape. There is the music work I do now, the live drawing I do. I've also like to go, when I go on safari, I like to draw animals, so I'm also producing wildlife art, which is a completely different thing to my main output. So last year, for example, I was in the Wildlife Artist of the Year competition, up against all these wildlife artists who do only that. So I'm doing more of the work, the music work. Alfold Blues Festival is coming up, and I'm the official artist for that. So I shall be in the pit in front of the performers while the photographers say click, click, click. I'll be scribbling. So that's the next big thing. And then in November I'm off to Uzbekistan. So more of my eastern travels. So I've done a lot of travelling around the various parts,
and certain countries I haven't ticked off my list yet. So Uzbekistan I've wanted to go to for a while with all the beautiful mosques, and
Yeah,
so I shall bring back a lot of inspiration from that.
definitely. You
But
can-
the next set of pictures are going to be from Tanzania, the
Yeah,
landscape of Tanzania, which I've still got in study form. So they will start to generate a number of abstract landscapes. Last year I was exhibiting here all my stuff from Namibia. So Namibia last year, Tanzania this year, maybe the following year Uzbekistan. That's
how political do you feel that art is or should be in our days?
Yes, now that's an interesting thing, because the other side of me, which I haven't mentioned, is that I'm also a cartoonist. I do cartoons. I did recently do one of Keir Starmer before he was Prime Minister, and bless him, he signed a couple of them, so they're knocking around somewhere. I think
Yeah.
I sold them off for charity. But I find I have strong political views. But they don't tend to feature in this work.
No,
They will
of
only
course,
feature in
yeah.
cartoons. And I will occasionally send them off to magazines, and I will always get rejection slips back. That's the nature of the way it goes. I used to do it quite a lot. I was editor of a satire magazine at university, and directly, contemporaneously with Ian Hislop and the Private Eye editor, we both had rival magazines. So whenever I send him cartoons, he takes great delight in just sending them back, not buying any. So that's fair enough.
But you didn't give up.
Well, no, but I do. Yeah. I now tend to post them online. I did a whole series of cartoons of death during the COVID outbreak. So, and I turned them into T-shirts, which people seem to like. They're sort of slightly dark humour, but
I like that
yeah.
humor myself here.
Yeah. So yes, it's a very target-rich environment now for political humour at the moment. I've just got to get my head around it. But as you say, I've got too many different projects in my head, and it's finding time for them.
Which is good. If you have
Well, yes. Thank you very much. I
Yeah.
feel greatly honoured to be interviewed
it's perfect.
by you.
I felt honored myself as well. Thank you.